Alanah Pearce, the sad, unlucky woman who has a permanent disability called having a child. And if you don't understand that, you missed a very fun video. And this one is gonna be special. I have been told that this is an absolute disaster. And skimming the comment section for roughly 5 seconds, yeah, it seems like it truly is.
I can't believe it's happened again. I'm sick of seeing it everywhere. It haunts me. It's in my nightmares. It's in all of my waking hours. It's everywhere. The number 7. Another games journalist has given another video game a 7 out of 10. And today I'm going to tell you why that's fairly common, actually, because there is, like, a pretty good reason for it, or maybe not necessarily a good reason. I'm not trying to color this reason in any direction. It's just a reason that you see 7 out of 10s as being common, to the extent where we now sometimes refer to 7 as, like, an average, which is weird, but allow me to explain. First, if you don't know me, sometimes people meme on me for mentioning this, but you'd be surprised the amount of people who comment on my videos who don't even know what my current job is and assume that I'm a full-time YouTuber.
Oh, I thought she's gonna say that she's the one who said that having a child is a disability. Oh man, that would have been so funny.
Let alone a job I used to have, so that's why I sometimes say it. Turns out people don't know stuff. And I used to work at IGN. I was a writer there for 3 whole years, which makes me exceptionally qualified. The most professional, lauded source on the internet, educated to such a high degree. I started, and I feel like that really sells it. The one person.
Good thing she made that 0.1 second pop-up that said it's a joke, because yeah, this is a joke, even though it's hilariously not funny.
On the planet equipped to tell you that step 1 before we get into the rest of this video, some of y'all take game reviews way too seriously. I will explain why the 7 out of 10 is so common and why it's memed because it's so common and that it doesn't make sense. I feel like so many conversations about game reviews would be like so much more chill if you just remember that it's just some fucking guy's opinion. I used to be that fucking guy. It's just some fucking guy has an opinion.
You need to understand that the reason that we are not happy with these 7 out of 10s for games that are roughly a 0 or negative out of 10 is because you're trying to lie and gaslight us to make us think that, oh, this is actually good. I should waste my money on this garbage dumpster fire.
Opinion on something. That's all a game review is. The fucking guy.
And then you try to tell everyone that, oh, you are the source that should be trusted because you know better. You're a professional journalist. No. How about no?
Who writes the review is no more or less qualified to have an opinion on any other fucking guy on the street about a game. That is my genuine opinion. That is the opinion that I held when I did it and got paid for it. I personally do not consider game reviews to be journalism, even though they technically are by definition of the word. But again, it's just...
Everyone knows every games journalist is just a failed political pundit. They failed at what they wanted to do. They got called trash, and now they're a games journalist. And they're trying to live their best life by subverting reality. What a great setup.
Some fucking guy's opinion, man. And they certainly are not objective and do not strive to be and shouldn't be because they are opinion-based. They are not reporting, they're just, oh, fucking guy has an opinion. And to be clear before somebody gets upset with me, not being sexist here, women can also be some fucking guy. Like I said, I used to be...
I am, though.
Some fucking guy. Gender neutral. It's really just that the guy who does it for IGN has an editorial policy that he has to abide by, probably has more writing experience than the average person, and more people will read it. But that is really the only difference. No one's opinion on a video game is any more or less valid than anybody else's. The only exception to that, and like I feel that way about films and stuff too, the only exception to that is when, in my opinion, someone who has a ton of expertise is the one reviewing something. Tarantino, not just some fucking guy. Miyazaki, Hideo Kojima, not just some fucking guy. They go beyond the...
Now at this point, I think Tarantino is just some fucking guy to a degree.
Sphere of some fucking guy in which all of the rest of us exist. But otherwise, 100% of us, IGN, GameSpot, Kinda Funny, you in my comment section, we're all just some fucking guy. It's actually pretty crazy when you think about it. Like, really, the...
Okay, that's 3 whole minutes to soften the blow, probably. That is impressive.
The whole world is just run by just a guy. Like,
also, doing damage control before the video even starts is kind of telling, not gonna lie.
What are any of us doing? Think about how many things you don't know how to do or how many mistakes that you've made, and you're still here, and that's just the same as the rest of us. None of us have any idea what's really going on. We're just some fucking guy who got a job. There it is. Okay, but first, 7 out of 10. Why is it so common? Why does it feel like 7 out of 10 has become...
I don't know what she's gonna say, but I'm assuming it's gonna be the same as, well, similar-ish to what I say, but maybe toned down a lot. These journalists give big games good reviews because they're just fearful of not getting the next game review code. If you're, this is, for example, what Bethesda is extremely well known for. If Bethesda gives you a code and you don't review it as a game journalist, a 9 or an 8 or a 10 out of 10, congratulations, you're not getting the next code. Because, well, you're not good enough to review their masterpieces because you don't clearly understand it. It's a minimum 8 out of 10.
The average video game score, at the very least, in the AAA gaming space. Why is everything a 7 out of 10? Why is it so common? What happened to the other...
Because it's corrupt. The fact that she admits that 7 out of 10 is like the most common thing, and we know by definition games are not 7 out of 10 for the majority part. There's just an admission that the whole system is 1, BS, and 2, corrupt.
Half of the scale. Why aren't we using it? In my opinion, it actually is because 7 out of 10 kind of has become average for AAA games, but maybe not for the reasons that most people would think. Important to note, before we get into this, that different websites do have different scales. A 9 for IGN is...
And none of these things matter.
Not the same as a 9 for some other website. You have any feelings about reviews that you look up what their individual scales mean? One thing that I see people mistake all the time is that they think a 10 out of 10 is a perfect score or that it's a perfect game. For IGN, for example, a 10 does not mean perfect. It just means masterpiece, because no game is perfect except for Portal and maybe also Deadly Premonition and Doom 93 and Tunic. But that's the list of perfect video games completed. Unless you have anything to add, editor of this video, Jacob Fullerton. The floor is yours.
Gungan Frontier. All your favorite characters are there. You get to play with Fombas and Falumpa sets and plant trees on the moon. And the UI is a clam. 10 out of 10. Perfect game.
There we go. Comprehensive list of perfect
The hell was that? Also, I'm worried now.
video games. No, really, none exist. 10 out of 10 means masterpiece, right? It is a masterpiece. It doesn't mean it's perfect. But for whatever website that you read reviews from or whatever discourse you're involved in, I recommend checking out their individual scales. And if you look at a 7 on the IGN scale, 7 means good. Not great, just good. When I worked there and I reviewed video games and movies and stuff sometimes, Dan Stapleton, the executive editor of reviews at IGN, told me to treat what score I would have if I was having trouble as what would I say if someone walked up to me on the street and asked. So a 7 would be, yeah, it's good. It's not great. It's good. It's good. Because to be honest, assigning a score to however many thousand words you've written where you try to really explain every single nuance of this thing and why you do or don't like it is extremely difficult and sucky, but it's just really...
No, most people would not find that difficult, honestly, but that's okay.
Important to audiences.
That's why a lot of YouTubers review games better than games journalists and movies and shows and all of those things, because it's not actually that hard. Watching something and then saying, oh yeah, this is good about it, this is bad about it, is actually ridiculously easy. Yeah, it's not that hard at all.
Like, it gets clearly so much engagement from these websites. People want the opinions distilled into a little number. It generates so much discourse. It generated this video, technically, and probably many videos about 7 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 game reviews that exist on this platform. Audiences clearly are very attached to the review score. For writers, it sucks. So when you're having trouble being like, I don't know what these words distill to, how am I going to figure that out? A good way to do it is, what would you say someone came up to you on the street? So a 7 is, it's good. It's not great, it's good. And
7 is not good. There's not a single person watching this video who's thinking, oh yeah, a 7? That's good. That's just good. No. 7 is supposed to be better than good.
Firstly, that does encompass a lot of video games, especially when you're a reviewer. People who review games or play games professionally are, by virtue of the thing that is their job, playing a lot more video games than most people. Now, before you get mad at me for that, it's just that they're allowed to do it during work hours. So they're playing more video games than every other human who has a job that is not in the games industry because they're allowed to play games at work. So like by default, they have more hours on any given day in which they can/are playing video games. But because the average games journalist is able to play more video games than the average reader, it's kind of another reason that a review is just some fucking guy's opinion. What somebody who has played 1,000 games thinks of a game is inherently going to be different to what somebody who's only played 100 games.
Editor, insert the video clip of the game's journalist who has played thousands of games not being able to complete the Cuphead tutorial level. Oh wait, I'm the editor and I'm not gonna do that. But you know what I'm talking about.
Thinks of a game, because you are coming into that with that wealth of knowledge, experience, and those set your expectations. Like, you might
Also, the hilarious part that game reviews sometimes have journalist difficulty in them is just
find something bland or generic because you've played 10 other games like it. If someone has played less games than you, they may not feel that way. Imagine somebody playing Star Wars Outlaws as their very first Ubisoft game. I myself was like, I'm kind
it's either way going to be horrible, even if this is your first Ubisoft game or 257th. Star Wars Outlaws is still a pile of trash, okay? I'm so tired of people trying to use this excuse. Oh, Starfield shit, but it's a Bethesda game. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean that if I'm playing a Bethesda game, I need to put on my special helmet so I don't hurt my head on a corner, okay? Now, that excuse does not slide. Oh, it's a Bethesda game. It's supposed to be fucking lukewarm piss water, okay? Oh, it's a Ubisoft game. It's supposed to be a pile of garbage dumpster trash. Now, these excuses, oh, it's a Ubisoft game, don't work. They don't work at all, you know? I'm not gonna rate a game, oh, look at this, it's a Bethesda game, so I will rate it on Bethesda game level. Now, I'm gonna rate it overall. I'm not gonna put it in some random arbitrary autist category.
kind of burnt out of Star Wars. I'm kind of burnt out with the Ubisoft formula right now. This feels very samey. It's not grabbing me, so I tried.
Yeah, people were burnt out with the Ubisoft formula roughly 7 years ago.
And I decided that I wasn't going to play any more of it. But someone who's never played a Ubisoft game before might be like, holy shit, this is crazy. What is this? We're all just a bunch of guys who have just fucking opinions. It's all so subjective. And it's impossible not to be subjective.
Now, she does say something true, and I did mention this about Starfield. There are people who don't like Starfield, and that's going to be roughly 95% of the population because we're not idiots. But then there's going to be Bethesda fanboys who like Starfield because, well, their lives are sad. And then there's going to be people who have, for example, played Call of Duty only in their lives. They have played, I don't know, something like Dota, Call of Duty, CS, League of Legends, or something like that. And then they finally play something that just allows them to move wherever they want. That's going to be wow for them. But that doesn't mean objectively it's not a shit experience. Maybe this is your first time experiencing something like this, and you are a little bit starstruck, but that doesn't change the fact that, in general, still, it's a pile of garbage.
You're inherently bringing all of the experiences that you have had into every opinion that you form on pretty much everything. And that's why reviews are what they are. They're just an opinion. Secondly, I think there's a misconception that 5 is supposed to mean average on the scales, where it doesn't, at least not on any that I've ever seen. A 5 for IGN means mediocre. They describe it as something that is
a 5 for most people is probably mediocre, because that's what 5 means.
Bland and unremarkable. And I guess with that definition, I wouldn't be like super uncomfortable personally categorizing Star Wars Outlaws that way, maybe. I haven't played enough that I feel confident saying that. But that becomes complicated when you realize how many games do fit below the 5 category, and that's kind of the point of this video. 5 is not actually baseline average, and it makes sense that most scores that these outlets give are going to be above a 5, because in comparison to the amount of video games that come out, the AAA games that people are playing, the games that are popular enough for people to even be talking about them, for somebody to need to write a review about them, are going to be in that upper category. Like, there are so many video games that come out. And the truth is, most games that release are very, 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 very flawed. Most games that come out...
What the hell? She literally just said, unironically, without hesitation, and she probably had already thought this through before saying it, oh yeah, all AAA games are gonna be above a 5, because fucking reasons, I guess. The hell is this autistic opinion?
Don't even have an inch of the complexity that you see in something like Star Wars Outlaws. And you may take that with some kind of like offense, as though you think that Star Wars Outlaws is not complex. And that would be totally fair if you compare it to everything else that you've played. But if you compare it to the games that come out, it has incredibly complex systems. Most games aren't even
Are you joking? Star Wars Outlaws doesn't have a single complex system in it. You barely can call it a game. What the fuck? What?
close to that level of
Okay, I'm starting to understand why people are a lot of upset about this video, because this is as bullshit as it gets.
complexity. Most games that release have one song, they have maybe two inputs, they have very few mechanics. They're just, you kind of press the same button over and over and over again. A lot of them crash all the time.
And if a game has... look at Flappy Bird. I love that game. Most people, Flappy Bird was awesome. You know how many buttons Flappy Bird has? 1. And it's an 8 out of 10. Mother of God, what do you mean? It does... number of inputs doesn't make a game complex or not.
Time they're very buggy. Sometimes they don't even have music. Most games that come out do not have even like an inch of the complexity or nuance that you are used to in AAA video games. Bad UI, unintuitive.
That's a complete lie and cope. Well, mostly a lie, but yeah, 100% not true.
Controls, just all of the things that net them somewhere between 1 to 5 on a game review scale. That means that they kind of need the space for the 5 to 10 for the other games. We're basically at a point where hundreds, if not thousands.
Wait, so she's effectively just saying AAA games are always going to be minimum 5, but they're typically going to be more because what? They have a bad game system and they probably have more than one button to press? But what happens if an indie game has more than one system and has complexity? Can you not rate it below a 5? What kind of thinking is this?
Of games are released every single day, usually from one-person teams who do not do it full-time. You don't even hear about these games, but I'm going to do an experiment for you all right now. I'm going to boot up the 3 most recent releases on Steam and play them for you right now. I don't know what they are. This is not rehearsed. It's not going to be the games on the bestsellers list, just the most recent releases, new releases on Steam, and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about, of like what majority of video games that release actually look like. Okay, everybody, I've downloaded the 3 most recent releases on Steam. They are Doll Catching Simulator, Future Breach, Youngblood, which is free to play, so that's pretty cool, and Zool Dungeon. Let's start with Doll Catching Simulator. I need settings so I can... It immediately crashed. Tried to change the aspect ratio and it immediately crashed. This time it didn't even have a menu. Cat? Oh, AD key, switch the claw machine. Enter key select. Okay, here we go. Enter key inserts coins. Enter. AD keys move space. This has physics, which is actually pretty cool. Enter.
So does that make it a 9 out of 10?
Just like in real life. They've nailed it, to be honest. Pick it up, pick it up. We got a cat! Huge! Am I the world's first dungeon? I have no idea what this is. Trap? Zool, not enough. Unlock trap first. Okay, okay. Right click to spawn your monster. Click him. Spawn him. Click him. Spawn him. What's the timer for? Where am I being timed? The surviving hunter, 100 destroy hunter camp. I'm earning money, I think, maybe? Oh, this text. Increase base HP PT on summon.
Okay, this already has more mechanics than Star Wars Outlaw would have if they continued to work on it for 10 years.
Increase movement speed on... Oh, yeah, okay, I can wait. I can give him little buffs. That's cool. So now we got like a jacked up Hobu. Am I trying to kill these guys? Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, got it. I think this is... Maybe I just spawn these in to kill these dudes. Oh, did I lose? Oh. Well, that's Zool Dungeon. Compelling.
Yeah, that looks like a solid 2 1 out of 10. Solid, okay.
Last but not least is Future Youngblood, a game that is apparently made with Unity. Game? Hello, this is a preview build to show the initial gameplay later. Deep in the dungeon. You get the idea. Probably the top 10 looks like that kind of thing. Maybe even more than that. And websites like...
Okay, yeah, these games looked horrible. I mean, I didn't try them, but from what I saw, they look really bad. Maybe they are actually better, who knows? Probably not. But, okay, so they're 1 out of 10s. They're not fun, they don't look interesting, they're dumb, they seem they seem unreasonably complicated, which probably makes it a 10 out of 10 in her book. And I don't know, I feel pretty comfortable putting Star Wars Outlaws at a 3 out of 10 next to them without any problem. Don't know about you guys.
Like IGN have to effectively reserve the lower half of their scales for those games because those games exist. They just very rarely review them because most people don't know what they are. Like,
again, how does this make sense? Oh, a AAA game is always needs to score below 5, but the indies get a below 5. AAA needs to score always above 5, but indies always score below a 5 because that's just the way it is. What kind of how do you even buy into this logic? I don't get it.
if people aren't searching for them, people aren't really trying to figure out if they need to buy them or not, so you don't really need to write a review for them. But in case one goes viral, like the day before, for example, very bad, basic video game, they still need to have that bottom half of the scale there for those games. And when you consider how many games are like that, it starts to make a little more sense why...
No, none of this makes sense. All of this is just cope.
You keep seeing AAA games on the other half of the scale. Like, that's the breadth of the scale that is being considered. AAA games are inherently a lot more complex than majority of the games that come out every day, so they are far, far, far more deserving of the top 5 part of that scale. The scale is not just AAA. Does that make sense? Am I articulating that?
No, well, you are. Yeah, I understand what you mean, but the only thing that's saving you is kind of this small amount of cleavage. Otherwise, I would have clicked off the video long ago.
I remember when Diablo 4 got massively review bombed by the user rating.
This was not review bombing. Diablo 4 was an absolute piece of atrocious garbage when it came out. It was shit. It was a pile of shit. It was a latrine not emptied for decades, okay? That was not review bombing. It was bad and people hated it.
Ratings maybe a month or so after it came out, which was deserved. They made some disappointing changes, but people were giving it like a 2 out of 10 and calling Games Journal...
Yeah, because it was really bad. 1 out of 10 is more accurate.
...as shills because they weren't giving it 2 out of 10. But when you see the games that I just showed you, and then you compare it to something like Diablo 4, which has complex systems and...
Who cares if it has complex systems? Also, they removed all of those complex systems in favor of systems that require roughly 0.5 IQ to manage properly, okay? What does this matter? Diablo 4 is still a bad game. Why does it deserve above a 5 if it's a bad game? Why can't it be a 1 out of 10? It doesn't matter that it's sharing the space with, you know, these games right here or whatever this is. It doesn't matter. This is shit, and Diablo 4 is also shit. So how the hell does this even remotely matter? How does this make sense?
More deserving of the top 5 part of that scale. The scale is not just AAA. Does that make sense? Am I articulating this? I remember when Diablo 4 got massively review bombed by the user ratings, maybe a month.
Bro, she's making me mad, actually, because she has completely just sold her brain into this ideology of complete nonsense making.
Also after it came out, which was deserved. They made some disappointing changes, but people were giving it like a 2 out of 10 and calling Games Journal shills because they weren't giving it 2 out of 10. But when you see the games that I just showed you, and then you compare it to something like Diablo 4, which has complex systems and enemies and classes and a ton of progression and music and sound design and art, you can see why it doesn't really exist in the same realm as a lot of the 2s that come out every day. It was functional, and it had this cool feature where you could actually play it for more than 5 minutes without being extremely bored. Basically, Steam is full of a lot of things that like barely count as video games for what the general public understands a video game to be, and most of them aren't even really worth reviewing, but the scale has to still exist for them. And it's like, I get why if you've only played AAA games, if you only played really, really popular games that do rise above, you know, the schlock of majority of the stuff that comes out, that you would have a skewed perception of what the scale looks like. Like, your scale is probably different to the scale of some other fucking guy based on just what you've played, where...
Your scale is stupid and undefendable. Stop.
Reviewers often have played a lot of stuff that falls on the lower half of that scale and is the reason the lower half of that scale exists. I think you could pretty easily make a case that they should just not touch those lower half games at all, and that you could like have a scale just for AAA games and they could be 2 separate things. But I think that would also be pretty complicated to explain to audiences in a lot of cases, where I feel like it's probably easier to explain, no, a 0 or a 1 or a 2 is for games that don't function. Diablo 4 making changes that negatively impact the game didn't make it completely non-functional, or didn't make it so that the only thing you could do was like play a claw machine. You know what I mean? But yeah, you could certainly argue for that if you wanted to. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, that's still dumb.
I'm just explaining why it currently exists the way that it does. And to be clear, I'm not trying to defend IGN in making this video in any capacity. Even when I worked there, they
Oh no, sounds like it.
had game reviews come out that I staunchly disagreed with. When I worked there, they had the Doom 2016 review, which was written by a freelancer who gave it was like an insane low score. Yeah, it was a 7.1 for Doom 2016. And I remember like everyone in the office being like, do not fucking agree with that at all. But it was from Joe Gilroy, who did not even work in the IGN office, a total freelancer. I don't think he even wrote for IGN very often, like maybe 1 or 2 times. I'm not actually sure. But like they've certainly had review scores that I fundamentally disagreed with. And that's just...
Wait, so what is Doom supposed to be? I really wondered what is it supposed to be. I mean, it's a good game. It's fun, but it doesn't really break the boundaries of anything. It was refreshing at that time. I don't know. Is she saying it's supposed to be a 10 out of 10 or what? I'm so confused. A 7 out of 10 is pretty good. Definitely playable. I'm so confused.
Sort of the reality of reviews being just written by some fucking guy. But yes, this is essentially why you might feel like you see so many review scores that are above a 5, or you feel like the lower half of the scale is being underutilized. It's why 7s feel like it might be average, and why I've heard people like call to change the 7 to a 5. But it's just when you factor in games that you probably haven't played or probably haven't heard of, the bottom of the scale gets very, very, very full very fast, and your AAA games...
But the bottom of the scale is already full by your own stupid definition. If you can't rate anything above 5 that's not a AAA development, then the bottom of the scale doesn't change if you change where the 5 is. It just doesn't matter. It just makes no sense.
Start to look a whole lot better in comparison. And finally, I know that this isn't...
This is just a shitty shill way of saying, well, the AAA companies need to get their games scored at a 7 or higher because otherwise we're not going to get the review codes.
Going to sway anybody who like already feels some way about this, but
yeah, these arguments are blatantly stupid. Of course you're not going to sway anyone.
Just to establish it, no publisher is giving an IGN reviewer a bunch of money to influence a review score. There are ways that companies try to manipulate positive review scores in ways that I think are extremely egregious and actually far worse than I think the general public realizes. Like, this stuff is huge. I'm gonna make a whole separate...
I'm pretty sure the general public knows what's happening. I'm pretty sure the general public always disagrees if you're gonna call something like Starfield a 10 out of 10. I mean, I think we have shown the fact that we are capable of making decisions without fucking IGN's help pretty well.
Separate video about this. I was gonna put it in this video, but then it's like too many topics in one video. It's a lot. I will make a separate video about basically like publishers, companies trying to influence people to get positive reviews and the manipulative tactics that are used for that. There is so much to...
Money. Lathering up, taking you to an expensive hotel, Disneyland, Star Wars, Outlaws, anyone. You know, all that good stuff.
Saying so much to unpack. But where just handing somebody money to give a game a score, which, by the way, as an aside, I've seen people recently suggest that IGN was paid to give Star Wars Outlaws the 7 out of 10. Why would Ubisoft pay for a 7? A 7? If you're paying a reviewer, you couldn't just slip them, like, you know, company like Ubisoft with a shit ton of money, just like another 50 grand or whatever the fuck, and be like, just make...
Pretty sure that's illegal to do it like that.
Get a 10. Why would they pay for a 7? But handing somebody money to give any review score...
I mean, to be fair, our Star Wars Outlaws should be paying for a 6 out of 10 at this point.
is extremely illegal. And these companies have giant legal teams who are so hardcore and so intense about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's also illegal to take money when you work in the government in a position of power to decide on policy and whatnot. But look at this. How many people entered politics, and suddenly, in a matter of, 2, 3, or 4 years, that worth is worth literally multiple millions. And yet somehow, the salary is just what was it, like 150, 200k or something like that for being a part of the Senate? Yeah, I wonder how that works, considering you can't give money directly. There are ways.
whole job is to prevent the company from getting sued or getting fined. That is the job of these legal departments.
Yeah, and that's why they don't give you money directly, but they take you out to Disneyland and you get to stay in a hotel, and the hotel is somehow magically filled with prostitutes that all want to get with you, and you get lathered up even more. Wow, it's almost like everyone knows these game rules.
I've worked with some of these legal departments. They are annoyingly hardcore. Stupid legal rules where they try to avoid getting sued for the dumbest shit that you're like, nobody's going to sue you for that. And they're like, doesn't matter. Somebody could, so don't do it. Paying somebody to have positive sentiment, even if you disclose it, is illegal. Did you know that? So like if I do a sponsored ad here on YouTube, they cannot ask me to say something that I don't believe. They are not allowed to ever say, hey, can you say this sentence? I think I've received...
Yeah, we know, but we know, everyone knows, including myself, I get a sponsor or something and I said, hey, I'm sponsored by this. It's shit. I'm not getting paid the next time. I'm not getting another deal from them.
Pushback on that maybe once where they were like, can you say that? And I was like, I don't feel that way. And they had to be like, okay, they are not allowed to do that. That is very, very, very illegal and taken very, very seriously. So paying for positive sentiment without disclosure is going to get you fined. But even with disclosure...
Okay, that's some blatantly dumb defense. Well, I think that's pretty much it. Anyway, that was Alanah Pearce. Well played, defending shit. 10 out of 10. Bye.